12 freakish and terrifying aquatic monster movies explored in detail. Aquatic monster films have existed since time immemorial. While some, like Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water, win Oscars, the others simply end up as unbearable B-movies. However, sea monsters have continued to haunt us in almost every mythology, or sometimes they appear to be urban legends like the Loch Ness Monster. No matter what, these creatures are something to behold. In this video, we have compiled a list of the best sea monsters created in Hollywood's history. A few films that feature here might not feel like Oscar contenders, but they definitely knew what to do with their monsters. Let's begin, shall we?
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Number 1. The Creature from Sweetheart, 2019. Jennifer Reming and her boyfriend Brad's boat washes up on the shore of a tropical island after there is an accident. Poor Brad soon dies, and she buries his corpse. All alone on the abandoned island, she comes across graves and belongings of the ex-residents. Later, Jennifer finds Brad's grave exhumed and a trail of blood leading from it. The following day, Jen's luggage reaches the surface, and she dives into the sea to retrieve it, only to find that there's a giant, ominous pit on the seabed. To her absolute horror, she finds a humanoid sea creature in the dead of night. For the next few nights, she attempts either to hide from the monster to catch it, but all her efforts are in vain. Eventually, Jen stabs the creature with a sharpened stick and narrowly escapes. Somehow, her friends Zach and Mia reach the island. Despite warning them about the horrors that hide beneath the water surface, they pay no heed.
I buried him deep into the ground and this creature came and dug him up.
However, the monster will not rest until he gets what he wants, i.e. whoever comes to his island. The monster from the film is a unique aquatic monster, as it dwells primarily inside a deep trench below the ocean's floorbed, but can also walk above the surface and breathe the air with relative ease. Before we see the entire body of the monster, it is first shown behind a canopy of trees. As far as strength is concerned, it is no trouble for the monster to pick up and fling humans at least 20 feet away with a single and simple strike. It uses the razor-sharp claws on its feet and hand to slice and puncture objects and humans. It might look like a dim-witted monster, but it shows a high degree of intelligence when it strategically tests the raft before attacking. Furthermore, it appears to be somewhat nocturnal as it hardly appears on the surface during daytime. But it is definitely light sensitive because in the scene where Jennifer lights up a flare above the water, it immediately comes out to inspect. When Jennifer attacks the creature with her pocket knife and several makeshift spears, its blood is revealed to be sticky and black. Furthermore, like some birds, reptiles, and sharks, the creature from Sweetwater has a nictitating membrane that it uses to moisten and protect its eyes. It appears as a humanoid reptile with a scaly and armor-like outer skin. Its most interesting feature has to be the predator-like communication clicking sounds it makes. Don't forget to catch it on Netflix. Totally worth a watch. Number 2. Lizzie from Rampage, 2018. A space station named Athena was conducting experiments on genetic mutations in gene splicing. However, an experiment goes awry and a mutated rat wreaks havoc. The CEO of the company, Claire Wyden, orders the lone survivor of the space station mishap to retrieve the pathogen canisters and return to Earth in an escape pod. However, the pod explodes upon entering planet's atmosphere, and the canisters spread across the US. A wolf and a crocodile become exposed to the pathogen, and they mutate into giant monsters. Another canister lands in the paddock of an albino gorilla named George, who is managed and communicated with by a US Special Forces soldier and primatologist, Davis Okoye. George, too, is exposed to the pathogen and grows in size, becoming more aggressive as he does. Genetic engineer and ex-Energyne researcher Dr. Kate Caldwell contacts Davis and tells him about the company's plan to use the pathogen as a biological weapon. Meanwhile, George is captured by US agents led by Harvey Russell. Funnily enough, the US agents take George in an airplane, but due to the elaborate conspiracy, he breaks out of the plane and joins the crocodile and the wolf to wreak havoc on Chicago and its nearby areas. However, there's still a way that George can be calmed down, involving his old friend Davis. Lizzie used to be just a good old neighborhood crocodile from the Florida Everglades. happy and content with eating fish in her vicinity. Maybe sometimes she lurked around humans, but she wasn't an evil croc. Really. But then humans did their little science trick and turned her into a 100-foot-long beast. Her mutation gave her several razor-sharp blades that emerged from her hide, tusks in her mouth, and a spiky club like that of an ankylosaurus. While the wolf and George only inhaled the mutating agent, Lizzie ate the entire canister. This made her bigger and stronger than the other two. She received super crocodile strength and durability. She could lift and fling huge military vehicles, bite her way through helicopters, and plow into buildings. She tore off Ralph's head with great ease. As far as her durability is concerned, she withstood a rain of missiles from an AH-64 Apache helicopter, as well as a bunch of grenades that exploded into her gills. These things only seemed to anger her, much less hurt her. Of course, she's a fantastic swimmer, but like other crocs, she's not as swift on land as the wolf or the huge chimp. By the way, Dwayne Johnson certainly rocked in the film as Davis. Number 3. Homo Aquaticus, from Leviathan. A crew of 7 finds a wrecked Soviet ship named Leviathan during their deep-sea mining operation. They salvage the ship's safe and find the captain's video recording that talks about medical issues and other things that overtook his crew. One of the Soviet seamen, named Sixpack, finds a Russian vodka flask and shares the drink with a colleague named Bowman. The strangest finding, however, is the fact that Leviathan was scuttled. The following day, Sixpack dies but later begins to reanimate into a horrific monster. Bowman undergoes a similar fate. 2 of the crew members call for an emergency evacuation, but a storm on the mainland causes a delay of 12 hours. Meanwhile, Bowman and Sixpack's reanimated and mutated corpses begin to merge with each other. But that's not all. A tentacled beast is waiting to attack the surviving members of the crew. The creature was created by the Russians as a part of their research on their unwitting crew members. But when the experiment got out of hand, they resorted to scuttling the ship to prevent further spread of this deadly infection. The Homo Aquaticus is also called the Fishman because it is a bioengineered human that looks like a fish. The creature is comprised of former Russian men who ultimately fused together, creating jawed tentacles, fins, a fish-like head, and other aquatic features. The Aquaticus can mutate and mature into an adult with rapid speed. Its severed limbs can act as individual creatures and can regenerate if not stopped. Apart from being extremely contagious, the monster can also absorb the intelligence of other organisms, including humans. All these features remind us of John Carpenter's The Thing, don't you agree? In the film, the crew managed to throw the creature into the sea, but a part of its leg is cut off and remains with them. It immediately started to regrow the rest of the monster. Nevertheless, despite the ability to absorb intelligence, it seems that the artificially manufactured alien was not as smart or dexterous as humans, and definitely not as smart as the creature in Carpenter's movie. The film does manage to create an atmosphere of paranoia, dread, and claustrophobia. Total points for that. Number 4. Gwemur, from The Host, 2006. An American military scientist orders his Korean assistant to dump around 200 bottles of formaldehyde into a sink. The sink leads to a drain that ends up in the Han River. The event causes several mutations in the amphibian animal community and kills many fishes. 6 years later, in 2006, a horrific and gigantic amphibian creature comes out of the depths of the river and attacks the crowd. Among the people present at the riverbank are a fast food joint owner, Park Gong-do, and his daughter, Hyun-soo. Gong-do runs with his daughter but somehow loses her in the chaos, and the monster abducts Hyun-soo and takes her into the river. Soon, the US military quarantines everyone who came in contact with the slimy beast. Naturally, Gong-do and his family are also kept in isolation. Hyun-soo manages to let her father know that she's alive and is being kept in the sewers. Gong-do and his family seek help from the authorities, but none come to their aid. Furthermore, it is revealed that an elaborate conspiracy is at play. Ultimately, Hyun-soo's family, who were simple citizens, take up arms and resolve to fight the monster and get their little girl back from its clutches. Will they succeed? The Gwemur looks like a giant gray tadpole but comes with a segmented jaw that contains mandibles, as well as several razor-sharp teeth like a fish. It breathes with its gills that are located behind the mouth. Like a fish, it has 2 long chains of fins on the back of its tail and a frog-like tongue that doubles as a whip. It has feet, but it seems to stumble a lot when walking or running. However, like other amphibians, the Gwemur is an excellent swimmer. There's a huge overgrowth near one of its eyes, but the reason behind such a mutation is not known. In the place of the hind limbs, it has 4 sharp appendages. The most interesting feature about the Gwemur has to be the 3 fishes stuck on its back. They were probably keeping themselves safe by attaching themselves to another mutated organism. Or they were simply feeding off the Gwemur like parasites. By the end of the film, these fishes fall off when the Gwemur becomes weak, a result of the agent yellow that the authorities inject into the river. The creature feeds by gulping the entire bodies of its prey, and like the monster from Leviathan, it regurgitates what's left over, including anything hard like bones or metals. Number 5. Deplodon from Deep Star 6, 1989. The crew of Deep Star 6, an underwater naval facility owned by the United States, finds a seafloor cavern. The leader of the crew, Van Gelder, is in charge of the mission whose objective is to find possibilities of underwater colonization and installation of nuclear silos. Upon finding the cavern underneath their aquatic facility, Gelder orders the use of depth charges to destroy it. However, the detonation is too massive and it collapses a part of the weak seafloor. The crew then send an unmanned vehicle to probe the area, but after losing contact with it, they follow. Although they find the vehicle, they also read a massive object on their sonar. It gradually closes in and begins a massacre. Have the crew of Deep Star 6 opened the gateway to hell? Or have they encountered an alien that didn't come from space, but lived in the depths of the ocean? Things get worse as the crew manages to wreck the facility inadvertently in an attempt to launch an attack. All the while, a monster is lurking around them. The monstrous beast existed deep under the depths of the ocean bed for an eternity before being awoken by the crew of Deep Star 6 with all their explosions and bright lights. It first attacked the vehicle Sea Cat and then began massacring the crew members one by one. The Deplodon is proof that man's curiosity often becomes his own death wish. They had lost one of the weapon experts, leading to the detonation of nukes that damaged the facility. When engineer Jim Richardson goes out to fix the damage, he too is taken down by the ancient beast. It kills Richardson by gripping him in its maws and then biting him. The Deplodon then swims inside and kills another crew member. They shoot it with carbon dioxide-filled shark darts, but even that seems to do no damage. Ultimately, the crew decides to run for their lives. The film was directed by Sean S. Cunningham, who also directed the 1980 blockbuster Friday the 13th. As a sci-fi horror film, it serves its purpose, but to expect anything more than that would be disappointing. The film could have been a much bigger success had they used better effects. Nevertheless, it's worth your time and attention if you're a horror film buff. Number 6. Cthulhu from Underwater, 2020. The crew of a drilling and research facility named Kepler 822 finds themselves 5,000 miles away from land and 7 miles under the water surface at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on planet Earth. Things go awry when a massive earthquake strikes and damages the facility. Since they find that other crew members have already taken all the escape pods, the remaining researchers decide to walk 1 mile towards another base named Roebuck 641 and try to reach the surface from there. Just when they are about to begin this arduous journey in their pressure suits, they discover and kill a previously unknown species. Initially, humanoid creatures hunt the crew one by one, but things worsen when they notice an entire nest of these creatures. But in an attempt to fight these creatures with flares, they awaken an ancient titanic beast named Cthulhu. This 1 mile journey at the bottom of the ocean is like taking a walk in an underwater theme park, only millions of years ago, and with creatures that they have never witnessed or even imagined before. Will anyone survive? The creature is based on the Cthulhu mythos of famed horror writer H.P. Lovecraft. Director William Eubank ensured that he retained the typical characteristics of the Lovecraftian monster and pleased the fans, presenting a gargantuan mountain-like monster with a grotesque humanoid upper half. Cthulhu was so huge that his lower half could not be seen and was submerged underneath the sea. It had an octopus-like head with strange features, but the CGI was efficient, and we got to have a clear view of the creature's 4 pale eyes, the several huge and sharp teeth, and the various tentacle-like appendages floating in the water. Its jaw had several layers of fanged teeth, and the lower jaw had the ability to split in 2 halves, somewhat like the predators. Furthermore, the Cthulhu had bony wings, meaning it could very well reach the surface, and maybe even fly. The behemoth creature can very well be compared to the Titans from the Godzilla universe, and it wouldn't be a surprise if we ever got a crossover film, or a Godzilla film which included this hefty beast. But then, want doesn't get. Number 7. Humanoids from the Deep, 1980. The story revolves around humanoid monsters that haunt the towns of Noyo, California. These monsters come from the depths of the oceans to kill men and assault women for pleasure. The monsters are nothing more than a manufactured disaster. According to the film, an organization intended to start a food processing factory in Noyo, and they were experimenting with salmon, injecting a certain growth hormone. The salmon escaped into the ocean during a storm, and bigger fishes fed on the mutated ones. These bigger fishes then transformed into murderous, ugly, dangerous, and depraved humanoid monsters who would strip women before mounting on them. However, not all of their attacks are successful, and a few women live to tell their horrific ordeals with these humanoid fish monsters. A few from the town are worried about these attacks as the annual town festival is around the corner, providing an excellent hunting ground for these creatures. We've heard about a lot of monsters, but these fish humanoids are a different deal altogether. They look absolutely grotesque and are extremely violent like other monsters, but have an affinity towards exploiting females. It is unclear if this kind of nature exists in them out of the desire for reproduction, or if they are inherently depraved and perverted. In the film, despite the fear of deaths and assaults around the town, the authorities and administration take no significant action. Also, most of the incidents occur when couples are about to have gotten cozy near beaches. We guess that the phrase "get a room" never made more sense than during this film. Nevertheless, this was another film produced by Roger Corman, and the 80s had just started to become saturated with rip-offs of sci-fi classics like Alien. Many cynical viewers and critics have also been critical of the rubber suits and the appearance of these monsters, but we think they serve their purpose in a horror movie quite decently. The monsters are basically an intelligent amalgamation of the Great White from Jaws and the Xenomorph from the Alien world. They are simply deadly and, well, they're bad. Number 8. Kraken from Clash of the Titans, 2010. After gods defeated the pre-Olympian gods, or Titans, and divided the world among themselves, they created man to worship them. Man's worship would mean immortality for the gods, and his blasphemy would mean peril for them. Zeus took to the skies, Poseidon reigns the oceans, while Hades was deceived into ruling the underworld. Sometime later, Perseus, the son of Zeus, is born to Queen Danae. However, an enraged King Acrisius kills the queen, locking the corpse as well as Perseus in a chest and throwing it into the sea. Perseus is eventually found and raised by fisherman Spyros and his wife Marmara. Several years later, the city-state of Argos declares war on the gods. King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia lead the human forces, but their daughter, Princess Andromeda, stands against her parents as the head of a rebellion. Hades refuses to allow this blasphemy anymore, and he threatens the end of Argos through the release of an ancient beast called Kraken.
I will unleash the Kraken.
If Andromeda is not offered as a sacrifice.
Unless you sacrifice the princess.
Perseus will have to realize that he's a demigod and defeat the Kraken to save Argos and Andromeda. But the path is full of difficulties, demons, and gorgons.
Release the Kraken!
Kraken was the offspring of pre-Olympian gods named Ceto and Oceanus, both of whom dwelled in the oceans. Naturally, Kraken was a humongous creature whose tentacles were so large that they could not just bring down ships, but also annihilate entire cities. His strength was supplemented and complemented by his immense endurance and durability. Furthermore, he had a huge maw with scores of razor-sharp teeth. The tentacles not only came in handy in spreading destruction, but also helped the Kraken in swimming swiftly. According to Greek mythology, whenever the gods wanted a city-state to be destroyed, they sought the help of the great Kraken. However, according to the Norse mythology, the Kraken was the largest of all sea creatures and resembled a giant squid. In the 1981 film Clash of the Titans, Kraken was depicted as Poseidon's pet, but in the 2010 film, they showed him as Hades' prisoner. The Kraken was released onto the city-state of Argos when Hades manipulated the other gods into allowing its release.
Our systems are offline, sir! We need to override the...
Number 9. Slattern from Pacific Rim. As aliens arrive on Earth through an interdimensional portal called the Breach, humans come together and build humongous manned robots called Jaegers to fight back. Brothers Raleigh and Yancey Beckett pilot one of the Jaegers named the Gypsy Danger to fight a kaiju named Knifehead. In a fierce battle, Raleigh manages to kill Knifehead but ends up losing his brother. Hurt and stressed by this immense loss, Beckett quits the program. 5 years later, the world governments decide to sweep the Jaeger program under the rug and build a massive wall instead, because kaiju sightings have become more frequent and Jaegers were expensive to manufacture. All of them are transported to Japan under the care of Marshal Stacker Pentecost, who also plans on using a tactical nuke to destroy the breach. However, Pentecost still needs Beckett and tracks him down to include him in the mission. Meanwhile, researchers find out that the kaiju are in fact bioweapons, created by alien colonists who seek to dominate Earth. Beckett still suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder caused by his brother's death. However, he will have to rise up to the task and forget his past because he has to face the biggest of the kaijus, the Slattern itself.
How big is it? What category?
Category 5.
Slattern was the strongest and the largest of all kaijus and appeared only at the end of the film. Furthermore, its toxicity and intelligence made it the fiercest kaiju in the Pacific Ring of Fire region. As far as durability is concerned, the Slattern has thick and leathery skin. For long-distance attacks, it uses its tail with 3 sharp crowns.
Come on! Let's do this together!
The attacks from the tail are so strong that they can pierce the Jaeger's armors. The most fascinating attack remains the one in which it spins rapidly, its tail becoming a mid-range weapon. It also has a spiky protrusion on the chest, which the Slattern uses to pierce through the Jaegers. Apart from the physical attributes, its roar releases massive sound waves that can cause damage to structures in its path. At about 600 feet in height and 6,000 tons in weight, its attacks garner heavy momentum and become impressively potent. Do look out for its hammerhead shark-like face and the slanted chin. Number 10. Bruce from Jaws, 1975. This film is about a man-eating great white shark that starts attacking beachgoers at a resort town. But since the town's main business comes from the beaches, the mayor and the rich businessmen refuse to close the beaches for tourists. When another young boy is mutilated by the shark, his mother puts a bounty on it. This leads many locals to turn into shark hunters, and they set out on the ocean. The film follows 3 young men named Quint, Brody, and Matt from the Oceanographic Institute and their experiences with the great white. Steven Spielberg directed and adapted this film from Peter Benchley's novel. Benchley got the inspiration for his book from a 1964 newspaper article that said that a 4,500-pound shark was caught off the Long Island coast. Although it was majorly a work of fiction, there are some truth and horrific events from 1916 that are similar to the story of Jaws. A young businessman named Charles Van Sant was struck and mutilated by a great white shark in Jersey Shore. 5 days later and 45 miles away, Charles Bruder was attacked. The attacks became more horrific and scary when the shark swam 16 miles inland through a small creek that joined the ocean. It was becoming a public nuisance, and no water body connected to the ocean was safe. The public was in a panic, and the authorities were on high alert. The hunt for the shark was being carried out like any other criminal investigation. Many of the then specialists like John Treadwell Nichols and Charles Hoskins, the director of the New York Aquarium, were consulted on the subject. Naturally, shark fishing became a sport for all people alike. And allegedly, a shark was caught that had human remains in its stomach and intestine. Spielberg followed this event from 1916 very closely while making the film that became a terrifying and terrific thriller. Many directors tried to replicate the magic, but none seemed to even come close to the thrill and fight that Spielberg generated. We guess the first is the best. Number 11. Piranhas from Piranha 3D, 2010. Fishing in Lake Victoria seals the fate of fisherman Matt Boyd because a school of deadly piranhas rips his body to pieces. As Sheriff Julie Forrester begins to search for Matt, she and her deputy officer Fallon discover his mutilated corpse and consider closing the lake for visitors. However, it is spring break, and thousands of students wish to have some fun there. Furthermore, the body of water attracts healthy revenue for the nearby town during this time of year, so the lake remains open. Sometime later, two siblings, Zane and Laura, get stuck on a sandbar island of Lake Victoria. It is revealed that the earthquake breached the floorbed of the lake and opened a passage to a prehistoric lake that houses a deadly species of piranhas named Pygocentris natereri, also called the original piranha. This species of piranhas devours their victim in moments and even survives through cannibalism. Sheriff Julie's warnings are ignored by the youngsters who party at Lake Victoria, and almost everyone gets either killed or wounded by the carnivorous fish. Will the bloodbath end? If yes, how? Although we do find the Pygocentris natereri, or the red-belly piranha, in many parts of the world, the film depicts them as an ancient and prehistoric species that went extinct around 2 million years ago. The film's piranhas have the ability to kill and devour organisms far bigger than them, but then that's the case with all piranhas. The difference lies in the ferocity that these piranhas show. They are way deadlier than the regular ones and kill just about anyone and everyone that crosses their path. Number 12. Octolus from Deep Rising, 1998. Like the Titanic, another grand luxury cruise ship named Argonautica went down, but this time, there's no fatal wrong turn into an iceberg. Rather, a huge monstrous creature with spiky tentacles that loves to suck human bodily fluids and spit out the skeleton. Captain Finnegan is hired by Hanover and his band of mercenaries to rob the vault and the affluent passengers. However, upon reaching the ship, they find none of the passengers, and the ship itself is in a state of utter turmoil. Soon, they find that the ballroom is filled with blood. As the crew hustles to achieve their objective, one by one they are killed by mysterious and tentacled creatures. It is revealed that the spiky tentacles are actually the body parts of a larger sea monster named Octolus. The creature may well be an extreme evolution of the oceanic animals named Otoya, who gulp their prey to suck their nutritious bodily fluids and then eject the skeleton. The beast takes over the ship with its tentacles, hunting any person alive. Trillian and Finnegan spot an island a few nautical miles away, and it seems to be the only way that they can save themselves from this sea monster. The last scene of the film has an exciting revelation. Octolus is one crazy big creature with a body so large that it engulfs an entire cruise ship. As the name suggests, its body was composed of several tentacles that ended in mouths with sharp fangs. The crew that went to rob the ship of its fortunes initially thought that the tentacles were individual creatures. We do not know if the tentacles are sentient enough to function on their own, or the main body controls them all. However, the tentacles were aware enough to figure out where the prey was, so they must have had some kind of sensory organ that detected heat or vibrations. Octolus seemed to be an able hunter because it made sure to send the prey into an enclosed location without an escape route so that it could devour them easily. Interestingly enough, the distant island that Trillian and Finnegan discover is in fact the Skull Island from the King Kong universe. Stephen Sommers was supposed to direct a King Kong film with Deep Rising being a lead-in film, but the project never began. We told you this so that you would understand that our alien-looking monstrous animal is comparable to a Kong or a Godzilla.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
You mess with my friend, you mess with me, mother!